might be one of those ideas that sounds better on paper than it does when you say it out loud. Dedicated bike lanes that turn 2 lanes of traffic into 1, with a car park in the middle of the street. Monday morning was a good start, as drivers waited for what they thought was a queue of cars. It turned out to be parked cars. So, is this idea working? Well, Chris James, your office at Vecchi is not too far away from where these bike lanes start. They started on Monday. What do you think so far?
Well, so far it appears to have been disastrous from the point of view that people have turned into Albert Street. They don't know what they're doing because you have rows of parked cars in the middle of the street and people pulling up behind them thinking they're a row of cars going forward, and they're not.
Haven't helped a tourist if they arrive in this town. First we had the left-hand lanes, which I think Sydney people are still getting used to. Now we've got these bizarre... I mean, what if you want to park your car? It just seems the strangest sort of situation there.
Well, I think it's a case of ideology overruling common sense. What we've seen here really is, I suppose, an ideological animus against the motor car from certain elements in the City Council. Part of this is to do with the Orwellian concept of actually reducing congestion by creating it. That is, making it so unattractive to drive your car into the city that you'll just give up and jump on a tram or jump on a bike.
Lord Mayor must have really seen seen the light during his junkets, because he went from wanting to reopen Swanston Street to suddenly wanting to get rid of cars everywhere across the city. I mean, what are we seeing here, Ash?
Well, I can say, as someone who used to be a regular bicycle commuter until the time I was knocked over by a car, that I think these are a pretty good idea, and they will be in time. I know that it's a bit of a mess at the moment. Motorists hate them, but we've just got to face facts that we are living in a city that is no longer a big country town. It's turning into a really big city, and we just going to have to tolerate this sort of stuff.
I think it's a good idea, but I think the issue that most people have, certainly the treasurers will have, is the cost. $340,000 this one's cost. How would you do St Kilda Road, do all the big intersections and streets, thoroughfares that people use to get into the city, and bring it in on budget?
Well, Melbourne City Council's still got more than 100 million cash. They're the most cash-rich council in the country. So they do have a strong financial position. But look, I agree, it's a fairly piecemeal solution to have one single road, Albert Street in East Melbourne, where you have this particular formula, and then St Kilda Road, it's on the other side. Now, St Kilda Road is phenomenally successful. The bikes absolutely pound down there at peak hour.
Except poor Ash, and that's where he got hit.
Yeah, but everyone's opening their car doors on the driver's side and imperiling the cyclist. So I do like the model of the cyclist coming down the left-hand side, and there's far less people getting out of the passenger door. So it is safer for the cyclists, but you really need to roll this out comprehensively across the city, and you're right, that's a hugely expensive exercise.
And so if it is expensive, if we were to talk about new roads, we talk about tolls these days. Should cyclists be taxed in a similar way that we have to pay our car registration each year?
What a stupid idea. I mean, I hear this argument, you know, why don't cyclists have licences? I mean, what a load of rubbish. I mean, if you look at the wear and tear on the roads, the actual cost to the community that a cyclist is actually incurring, it's an absolute fraction of a car. So, I mean, this is just a stupid argument, not even worth having.
Yeah. And it's good to see, I mean, the RACB's got this bike share scheme as well, which is another really good innovation for short commuter trips. So I think it's great that Melbourne's finally getting with the program on bike riding, and I agree, it'd be nuts to licence them. You want to encourage this, it's the most environmentally friendly and very cost-effective way to get around.
I think part of it's about education, and we all have our stories of seeing cyclists riding through red lights and riding on footpaths and doing really stupid things, and I think a licensing program would help build in that education. I think the other thing too is we do have inconsistencies across the system. Cyclists are wanting more and more road space, so therefore they should be prepared to pay for that to some extent or another. Also, you've got motorcyclists as well who have to pay licensing and registration.
So, Beck, support the idea of cyclists paying a tax?
We actually ran a poll on that, and 51% of people said yes and 49% of people said no. Well, there was an allegation that the cyclists tried to stack the poll on the no side, but we'd probably lean towards some sort of licensing system.
So is it the Lord Mayor then in the council who's focusing on bikes at the moment? Because first you have this system which just down there around Federation Square of hiring a bike without a helmet, and now this other suggestion down Albert Street. I mean, is it the Lord Mayor pushing all this?
I don't think it is. I think there are different groups within the Melbourne City Council. I think there are elements that are pushing this. I think you've got to look at policy consistency as well, because on one side of Punt Road you're actually cutting out car space, but on the other side you're actually creating clearways down Bridge Road and Victoria Street and actually increasing the road space. So it's a really silly system.